In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
We have a little bit of a segment that we like to call "Never Let the Truth Get in the Way of a Good Story." That's one of Alice Cooper's favorite sayings. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But I want to say, never let a story get in the way of a good truth. Because I was been on the internet a little bit, and there's some controversy going on around this whole tongue design Rolling Stones logo, and I want to hear the story. Because I think there's something that's out there, but I want to hear the truth. All right. So one of your first projects with a new New York-based agency was helping to design the Rolling Stones tongue. Now, why has there been so much controversy over the year, and what's the real story behind that? Was there any truth to that they were Mick Jagger's lips? And you've already made that a little bit of a fiction because you say you draw the original artwork from that. Your
well,
first
his lips were definitely, were influential. I mean, that was kind of one of his, like Jimmy Durante nose, I mean, it was what made him.
Alice is known for his nose. Mick Jagger is known for Alice's eyes.
Yeah.
Mick Jagger's mouth. Yeah. Okay. So let's hear the whole story about the Rolling Stones tongue logo.
And that, it's interesting because everything that I'm going to tell you was really because I was in the right spot at the right time when that opportunity came along. So here I am at Norman Levitt doing happy as a clam, doing, all the stuff for Jesus Christ Superstar. And the headhunter calls and wants me to go to an interview. He said, "You're doing album covers. You love it." By this time, I had done 2 or 3 other albums at Norman Levitt. I did a Aida opera package. It was beautiful. I did a few other albums. And he said, "Now that you're really into this album cover thing, I've got a place that just does album covers. And I want you to go there for an interview." And I said, "No, it's not going to happen because I don't want to get into the position of jumping from job to job." And people look at that after a while and go, "Hey, you've had 3 jobs in 2 years. What the heck's up? Why would I hire you? You're going to be moving on or whatever it is, the games that you're playing." So for quite a while, actually 3 or 4 days, I refused to go to this interview. And finally he convinced my wife, because he would talk to her while I was at work. He'd call her up and say, "What's wrong with your husband? Ernie
he must have gotten your number from the headhunter, from the previous headhunter, right?"
Well, and so by now they have a good relationship, and she's agreeing with him that I should go do this opportunity because I really found myself doing the album covers. It was really, I forgot all about Madison Avenue, forgot about, advertising, and really wanted to pursue the album cover stuff. And I was happy. And so when she would say, "Well, Jim called and you really should take this, there's an opportunity," I say, "I'm happy right where I am. I'm a star there. I saved this account. I felt like Andy Hardy coming out of the room with everybody up on everybody's shoulders, And so eventually, after a few days, they worked on me and I agreed to do it. I'm going to go, I'm going to look at it. I'm probably not going to do it. Okay, because I'm happy where I am and I don't want to get the reputation of jumping from job to job. So I go there. It was a little agency in a 3-story brownstone on 53rd Street between Madison and Park. And they just did album
close to Madison. You're close to Madison still.
Close enough to Madison, half a block. And so I went on the interview and I'm talking to the owner of the agency, and he had his vice president in the room and one of the sales guys. And I showed him the Jesus Christ Superstar album because at that point it was really hot. It was on everybody's top of mind. The church was against it. The Pope was poo-pooing it. Everybody was loving it.
My mom loved it.
No, my mom too. My mom too. Are you kidding me? It was one of her. She used to keep a stack of album covers under the TV on the tray there. When people would come over, she'd pull them out and start showing what her son did. Jesus Christ Superstar was always on the top. And so
Ian Gillan was singing the hell out of it. I love it.
Yeah. So I'm showing him all the merchandising stuff, and he's really digging it. And he said, "Well, what else do you have?" And I said, "Well, I've got this album. It wasn't really a released album. It was a gift for salespeople. And I showed him the Dolls Alive package. And first of all, it really caught his eye because it was printed on board. Up until that time, up until the Andy Warhol banana cover with the Velvet Underground, pretty much every album cover was printed on. Here, let me hang on one second.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Every
You're
album
getting
cover
important phone calls during the
no,
podcast.
no, I don't
It's
care.
no
It
problem.
was a client. That's not important. So every package pretty much was printed on 2 pieces of paper that were laminated to a cardboard sleeve or a chipboard sleeve.
Right.
Okay, so they'd print the front cover, wrap it on the package, wrap it over the edges, and then the back cover would come on and seal it. That was a paper package. That package was between 5 and 6 cents. Board packaging became a big thing because you could do embossing, you could do die cutting, you could do all this different stuff.
That's what made your work unique, right? That's what gave you that. And
I would have never known that or done it had it not been for International Paper Company, because it was on their 22-point stock that they print cosmetics packaging and stuff on. So I was able to do it there. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know that the industry was changing. And the guy that I went to work for was a broker. He used to buy printing from the printer and sell it to the record company. Record company didn't buy it direct. So I'm showing him this package. He sees, oh man, first of all, it's a hexagon cover. It's printed on board. Turns it over, opens it up, and pulls the record out. And he's looking at the label. And
go back to that picture, Vic, if you can, of the tongue, right?
So he's looking at that label, and he starts telling me this story about how he and Marshall Chess grew up together in Chicago, and Marshall's dad owned Chess Records, and Marshall's dad sold Chess Records to Atlantic, and they made Marshall's dad president of Atlantic, and he put his son in charge of managing the Stones because they needed direction. They needed a strong manager. So he went to his friend and said, I need a logo for this band. And it just so happened, it sounds like it's a story, but it's a true story. The art director, the creative director, whatever you want to go, Walter, had come down with a rare spinal infection that paralyzed his whole body, except from, the head was still talking and stuff, but the rest of his body was limp.
Yeah, that's not going to be conducive for designing. No.
Yeah, and so he needed, like Norman Levitt, he needed a creative director to come up with a logo for Rolling Stones. And he's looking at this label, and he said, and he's telling me that story, and he said, if you go upstairs to my art department and you put a tongue on the outside of these lips, I think I could sell that to the Stones. So I went upstairs to his art department, spent about 15 minutes doing a drawing, added a tongue, added some teeth, and I went back downstairs.
And they're really nice teeth, actually. Definitely, you can tell that there's not Mick Jagger's mouth, because look at the teeth. The teeth are so nice and straight. Probably they are now.
Yeah. And white.
Then.
Yeah. So I went back downstairs, showed him the sketch, and he goes, okay, perfect. Wait here. So he had a big bay window in his office where you could look down onto the street. There was a Souvlaki place on the ground floor, and then he had the next 2 stories up. And he went and got in a cab, and he went to Andy Warhol's factory in Lower Manhattan, where Marshall was. And he showed the sketch to Marshall. Marshall said, great. He came back, took about 2 hours. He came back and said, okay, you just designed the logo for the Rolling Stones, and I'm going to hire you, and I got $200 and a job.
That's your first gig, $200. Not bad for 15 minutes work. But at the same time, when you think about it, 40 years later, you go, well, wait a second. So there you go. There's a great version of it right there.
Yeah,
and
that's the
I know that immediately what happened was you ended up designing all the merch for that tour, right? So that's where things get a little bit, where the story gets a little bit controversial. That's where maybe he said, she said, things start happening. What did happen where the album logo that looks very, very similar to that ended up on the actual Sticky Fingers record?
Okay, well, what the story that I heard from the guy that I was working for was that Marshall loved it, took it back to the Stones, showed it to them, and the Stones weren't really liking the management. Okay. And so the
They
story
were
that I
looking
got,
for something not, they just wanted to disagree
yeah,
almost, probably.
exactly. And so, and I think a lot of it had to do with Marshall's dad and, that whole thing. And anyway, the story that I heard, well, the thing that I did was supposed to be on the album and all the merchandise.
It was
I
on the
didn't,
merchandise, right? I've seen pictures with Mick Jagger wearing that original
yeah,
logo, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In fact, they just released on their official website, they released a shirt with that logo on it. It's $400. I sell mine for $35.
You know what? We're gonna fix that, aren't we,
Yeah.
Joey?
Well, you know
We're
what?
gonna
It isn't.
we're gonna
It's
sort
never
that out.
been about the money with me. It really hasn't. I enjoy what I do. I'm blessed that I've been able to make a career, a 51-year career, now 52-year career out of something that I loved. I never had to have a job.
I
It's
got
great.
you. I
You
got you.
know,
But you know what? Like I said, I love the truth getting out there right now. And I know you probably told the story before, but I mean, you can see it, folks, in the proof of the Dolls Alive artwork. And obviously, the first rendition of the first Rolling Stones tongue logo that's obviously from your it was your brainchild. Although,
well,
the
there's
story,
guys like John Pache, who
John
was in
Pache
England, right?
has some sort of credit towards it because his version of the logo, I think, didn't even make there weren't real
No.
teeth there. The
There were
tongue
teeth, but
kind of
no
blends
lines in
in.
the teeth. And
Exactly.
supposedly Mick Jagger had showed him a picture of Kali, the Indian goddess, and so that's where they got the idea. And
Ah,
and to be quite honest with you, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I really like John Pache's version better than the one that I did. Okay, and the main reason for that is John Pache's version is like a gesture drawing. It's animated. The Stones are animated. Mick Jagger's all over that stage. Keith Richards all over that stage. They have energy. My logo is it's corporate, okay? Because that's kind of where I started in corporate.
you know what? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no just for me because I like the original. It's like Coca-Cola, the original logo versus
Right.
Coca-Cola, the new one. You
Today.
didn't design the Coca-Cola logo, did you? I know you've done
No,
work with
I didn't. I wish I
but
would have.
that would have been a big one as well.
Yeah,
But
would've
you
been
know
another
what? The
one.
Stones tongue is iconic. It's great. And you know what? I'm going to get that $35 version of the original one. I'm not going to pay the $400 version
Well,
of
no,
that
I'll
shirt.
send you one.
I love that original version.
Okay.
Have you and John Pache ever met before? And have you guys sort of ever
No.
like sat down? You've never met, never talked.
No, but there is a guy who is a writer who interviewed me at a museum showing I was having. We became good friends, and he also interviewed John Pache. And he said that that Pache had recognized what I had done and liked what I had done, and he had told him that I said basically the same thing about his. And then there's guys like Ruby Mazer and a few others that try and Ruby did a version that was later on and had some issues with the Stones, but that's another story. A lot of people take credit for it, and you know what? It doesn't bother me because if you look at the body of work, okay, I've done 249 album covers. I'm working on my 250th for Burton Cummings, one of my best friends.
I
from
love
Guess
it. You're
Who.
going for 250. See, in my research, I was going over 200. So now I'm saying you're nearly 300 at this point.
Well, I'm closer to 300 than I am to 200. Let's put it that way. So look at the body of work. I mean, I've done all this work, and on top of the album covers, I have twice or three times as many corporate pieces because the artists that were doing the album covers were also doing work for international or for Rockwell International. We designed 13 buses for the LA RTD that looked like big submarines in the water that took kids back and forth to the beach from 13 different locations in LA. We did work I worked for Nestle for 30 years doing advertising and packaging. I worked for Kraft. I worked for, InBev, one of the largest beer companies in the world. And I worked on Beck's and Bass and Stella Artois, all these.
And Rolling Rock, I heard as well.
Rolling Rock, yeah.
I'm Ryan Roxie, and I've taken all my years of experience of playing guitar, and I want to pass the torch of rock and roll on to you. Check out the System 12 Guitar Method.